I'm Jess.
And I'm Wes.
I'm Jess.
And I'm Wes.
I'm Jess.
And I'm Wes.
We are the National Wrestling Clipping Alliance. I'm Jess.
And I'm Wes.
And we are the National Wrestling Clipping Alliance, and you're watching the NWCA Podcast, the only wrestling history podcast that doesn't talk history. We show history. And Wes, I know you're trying to hide the mug, but you got to step up. We got a big show today.
Purple it is. You know,
yeah.
we're ready to go here. We've got a fantastic episode of Canadian highlights for Canada Day coming right up for us. And our Canada Day is July 1st as opposed to America's holiday, which is July 4th. And we are highlighting cards straight across the country. No time period, no nothing, just all Hulk Hogan no matter what.
Look at this guy with the Hogan reference. I'm so proud of you, bud. I know you can't stand him. The all ripped shirt right now.
It just makes me.
For a guy who witnessed Hogan versus Terry Funk, you still can't even give him credit.
For the show, that's all.
Oh God. Yeah.
So it's a leg drop. Oh my God. Right through the ring.
Buddy, Rocky Johnson's finisher was a suplex. Get out of here. Yeah. So huge show today. We, like Wes said, Canada Day. Wes, our subscribers jumped up. We are at 74. So happy.
75.
No, we went down one.
Oh.
You lost somebody with your old man humor.
But the views are all up. The
Facebook's
groups are over
are way up.
2,700. We're over 2,700 in our groups. Thank you so much for coming on board, everybody. Any questions, anything at all you need, you want, you would like us to answer a question, help you out with something, do what we do, Jesse, like what you said last podcast. We're there for you. It's all about sharing and caring professional wrestling history.
Yeah, and another thing that we are kind of getting known for is helping people find history of their relatives, which is kind of cool. Like we get messages like, oh, my great granddad was a wrestler, or my godfather was a wrestler, or my great uncle was a wrestler. Do you have this, that, and we go digging, and we have connections to hopefully help you find that stuff. But today it's all about Canadian wrestling history. And Wes, when you talk Canadian wrestling history, you know, we do the Ontario side in our Ontario Wrestling Clippings of the Past group, and then of course we cover the Bear Man and the Wild Man tribute page, and then we grew to the National Wrestling Clipping Alliance and focus worldwide. But for Canada, like we got some deep roots here, and there's only one man I had to bring on the show. It's the man from Grappling With Canada, Andy, the Taxman. Give you money for your gold, the Taxman.
Hey, Andy.
Call me the third man, but not the Hogan one, because I don't want Wes getting all hot all of a sudden, eh?
No.
Andy, when we talk Canadian history, you run the Canadian Wrestling History Facebook group. You got Grappling With Canada. That's a great Canadian wrestling history podcast show. Like, we had to have you out to discuss the Canadian history, like Wes said, province to province.
Well, it's absolutely my pleasure to be here. And obviously, we've been talking off air. We've been having some fun. We've also been talking on another program that'll be airing Canada Day as well. And maybe we can get into that in a little bit. But I'm so happy to be here and, ready to chop it up Canadian style, if you will, province to province, like you guys said.
There you go.
Awesome.
You were going to say something?
No?
I
got nothing to say, man.
You got nothing to say? Okay, well.
See ya.
Yeah, adios. Well, that's it. That's my joke of the day. I'm done.
Podcast's over. We're out of here, kids.
We're out of here.
Okay, so I'm going to start it off. I got a big show.
All right, let's go. British Columbia.
Nope. The other side, Halifax, Nova Scotia.
Okay.
November the 4th, 1987. Big WWF Superstars card. Oh, at the Halifax Auditorium. Some like really good matches here. Some pretty decent guys. I think you might have heard of some of these guys, Jesse. There's a cage match between the natural Butch Reed, who did the Sweet Daddy Siki ripoff by this time with the white hair, against superstar Billy Graham, who was done by this time, but oh well, he was there. Billy Jack Haynes and Ken Patera versus Dino Bravo and Greg Valentine, which that was a good tag team, as opposed to the other guy he was with. What was his name, Jesse?
Beefcake.
Yeah, I got him later. And Jake the Snake Roberts versus Killer Khan and Brutus Beefcake versus Hercules as the two main events. How's that for a card? 1987.
Jesus, Brutus the effing Barber Beefcake, hey?
That's Wes's favorite tag team, Beefcake and Valentine.
I give him his due. I mean, he was good in the ring, but
He got in because of Hogan.
he looked good in the ring, as in standing there or holding the tag rope, right? Just brutal.
He's in
Brutal.
the Hall of Fame, and Stan Stasiak is not.
That's right.
And that makes you angry. So, boom. We're renting Red Hot West tonight.
Makes us all angry.
Okay.
Anything about any of those guys, Andy?
Well, I'm all rattled because of the Stasiak comment now, but it's pretty standard WWF card, although it's who's on the undercard again on that one?
Two other matches.
They're not listed, hey?
No, the third match listed, or the fourth match listed, was the cage match between Billy Graham and Butch Reed.
I'm shocked Billy Graham went out there.
Yeah, I'm surprised too, but I love Butch Reed. I thought he was great.
Well, and that early in the card too is interesting. I understand that would have been later on in his career. Obviously, he's winding down at that point, but even still.
Yeah, fourth match, a cage match too. You think they put the cage on last usually, right?
I think so. That's weird. Especially with that big blue bastard they used to have. That thing was not very easy to tear down and set back up.
Wasn't that awful? That was just absolutely terrible.
Oh, come on, man. Hogan and Bundy?
Look through it.
Yeah, you could barely look through it. That Hogan and Bundy in the cage, I enjoyed that. That was good. The cage just blew. Just that sucked.
I'm going to blow if you rip on Hogan tonight, man.
I'm not going to mention his name again.
You're going out east. Okay. Do you want me to go out east too then?
No, you go wherever you want because mine's not in
I'll go out east.
Geographical order.
All the transcontinental railway.
Yeah, mine's the transcontinental back and forth.
All right, ready for this?
Yeah.
Pulled this out of the binder. Halifax, Nova Scotia.
I just did Halifax.
Yeah, so what? We're staying out there.
Okay.
What, you want me to go somewhere else?
No, give me the Halifax card because we'll see if that one beats his.
Yeah.
Let's do that one.
June 16th, 1977. So I'll show you this one.
Okay. Nice. Okay.
And again, if you miss it, we'll show it at the end of the show. Oh, my sister's laundry's done. We don't edit that out.
Well, that's technology if I ever heard one.
Yeah.
Rudy K defeated Pierre Lefebvre. You know me in French names, Wes. This is going to be rough, bro.
That's Lefebvre. I'll help you with French today because Wes is usually almost as bad.
Paula.
Frenchie Martin defeated Joe Ventura. Then you got the Maritime Tag Team titles. The champions of Leo Burke and Hubert Gallant defeated Don Kent and Mask Mahler. Then you had a chain match between the Beast and Big John Quinn. and the Beast defeated Big John Quinn. And then the promoter was Bobby K. So here, I'll show it again.
Awesome. That's kind of strange that John Quinn would be out there. I didn't know he went to out east that much.
Yeah.
What's the
It's
year?
interesting. I wonder who the Master Muller would have been at that point. 77, you said?
Yeah, June 16th, 1977.
Could have been could have been anybody. Could have been Duncan McTavish.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's crazy though that the old clippings, Wes, this came from the Terry Dart stuff. But
Okay.
I like the old. It looks like a boxer.
Yeah, it
Almost,
does look like a boxer, doesn't it?
right?
Yeah.
They probably had an old template that they used from wherever the printer was, right? So it would have just been your standard black box, fill in the white letter, and then the template was the athlete of whatever it would have been, right? Boxing,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
example.
Did you ever cover anything out east, like Nova Scotia or Halifax, on your show or anything?
I haven't yet, and I got to kayfabe that a little bit because that's one of the episodes in a couple of months we're going out east.
Oh,
Okay.
there you go.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So that's all the Cormiers.
I don't want to spoil that episode.
No, it's all.
Lines.
No problems at all.
All right, Wes, where do you want to go?
Okay,
the
now
train.
I'm going to Edmonton.
Okay, cool.
July 25th, 1987. AWA card out in Edmonton, which was weird because of Stu and everything and his legacy, absolute crazy legacy there. But I think Kaniski had something to do with this. Didn't you play on your Kaniski episode an interview with the guy from AWA and Kaniski talking about Kaniski co-promoting AWA?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
this
that's when he was running for he was running all of the Canadian markets, I believe. And that was also the time when Stampede was dark because that was after the sale, the pseudo sale to McMahon, right?
Yeah.
So I think you're looking, if I'm not mistaken, it was 86 till 88. Stampede wasn't running there. Yeah.
Okay, so that's why it stands out here. AWA World Heavyweight Champion Kurt Hennig versus, of course, ex-champion Nick Bockwinkel. Snuka versus Zabisco on the undercard. The Ustinov, I think that was Ustinov a Winnipeg guy? Dave something?
Yeah, I'll have to check that one. I'm not certain for sure. And I have a little
the
running
fourth
here.
guest of the show.
It's
All
another
right.
guest.
Okay.
It's okay.
And Boris Zukov versus DJ Peterson and Wahoo McDaniel. I think Wahoo was booking at the time.
Yeah, wasn't Wahoo an agent in the?
Yeah, an agent. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sherry Martel versus Candy Divine. Dennis Condrey.
Match too at that point.
Pardon
Because
me?
Candy Divine could work back then.
Yeah. Dennis Condrey versus Mitch Snow. And Kevin Kelly, Mr. Magnificent versus Nick Kaniski. So obviously Nick got on the card because of his dad, right?
Yeah.
Snuka versus Zabisco sounds pretty interesting, although Jimmy was probably pretty racked up by then,
I
87.
never got to see Sherry compete, so I always knew her as the manager.
Oh,
Yeah,
she
she
was awesome.
worked. Yeah, she was a very underrated worker. Yeah.
Yeah. So
There's a couple of matches on YouTube I've seen. Oh shoot! You know what? I'll get the link to you. I don't remember who she was facing, but it's a hell of a match, and especially for the time period, right? Like, don't get me wrong, it's not all Japan, but it's good for North American women's wrestling.
There's a part Jesse and I talked about the women's wrestling before where we spent 40 years watching Moolah do her shtick. And we're giving credit. She lasted a long time and she was in the ring and blah, blah, blah. But the changing of the guard was so crazy from like Moolah
Drastic.
to 85 and then to Lalani K and the Jumping Bomb Angels. And obviously Candy Divine could still go at this time. And Sherry Martel was she was fantastic. And she's so acrobatic, drop kicks the whole bit, right?
yeah, now they're even saying, like, I always tell them, like, bro, the women can go almost as good as the men sometimes.
some of the old like WWC like some of the old Japan women's matches, like they're better than 90% of what you see today out of women's wrestling. And this is like it's mind blowing. Like, yeah, there's so many. We can go on and on and on. Obviously, you know, like Monster Ripper, Bull Nakano, go look at anything they ever did, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you want to see just knock them, drag them out matches, like or Wendy Richter as well, right? She just a maniac in Puerto Rico, right? It's just such great stuff.
She got huge too with the whole Cyndi Lauper stuff too in the WrestleMania one, which we covered at the closed circuit in Ontario, and how much money that they just made on closed circuit alone.
Change that whole atmosphere for the women when Cyndi Lauper and Vince pushed the entertainment value, adding the entertainers to the personalities.
He took it from wrestling to show. Right?
Yeah.
We always talk about the show, right?
Now, there's one thing I wanted to ask Wes about that card that you brought up from '87. Did Kelly Kiniski have a title in that? Was he in a title match?
No, he was in the opening.
He's in the okay. I didn't know if that was the part where he had because he held. Oh, was it one of the tag titles? And I think it was '87. I didn't know if they were going to advertise that on that card though or not.
Yeah, it was billed as the last match, opening match. So it was Nick versus Kevin Kelly.
Yeah,
Mr. Magnificent, right? Wasn't he was around here too in Winnipeg, right?
he was around here. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's wild though. It makes sense because '86. Because I have didn't you see the Bulldogs on the WWF banner in Maple Leaf Gardens, West, in '86?
It was probably '86, yeah.
'86 or '88 or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Joe Hagan had a good conversation with me about that on the Ontario page that we do.
Nice.
Yeah, it was great. I have a ticket of them in '86 in BC. So, and speaking of BC, that's where I'm taking the train, bruh.
You're alive.
I pulled out my All-Star Wrestling card, my program, I should say. Vancouver, official Monday, May 4th, 1970, Exhibition Gardens. So, in the main event, well, let's go from the bottom, I guess. Jack Bentz versus Crusher Morwowitzki. Holy
I told
Christ.
you already what that was. Andy, tell him who it was.
Oh, I'm drawing a total blank. Now you put me on the spot. What's that?
Here, let me pull this out so there's not a glare.
Moose Borowski.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bruce Borowski, yes.
There we go.
I can't even see that. Yeah, if you hold it any closer, it ain't going to get any better.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don Morrow and Bad Boy Shields. Honolulu from Don Morrow. Didn't we say we were thinking that's Don Morocco? 1970?
Yeah.
Yeah, they probably just misspelled it.
Yeah.
He went by that in Portland also, Don Morrow. I have no idea why, but
Yeah. Then you got Dean Higuchi versus Pierre Legrand. Duncan McTavish from Scotland.
There you go.
Versus Bulldog Brown. Scotland.
two short guys.
A lot of Winnipeg talent on that card.
Yeah.
Tex McKenzie versus Johnny Quinn. And then the main event, Steve Bolus versus Gene Kiniski. Show this too. I got, when you open it up, some pictures there.
Oh, nice. You got a ton of Hamilton guys there too. Holy shit.
Yeah, no
That was
kidding.
the Hamilton card, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, almost the two cities on that whole card, right? Yeah, that's pretty wild, actually.
The Hamilton Flash, Steve Bolus.
Yeah.
That's funny. I like the Duncan McTavish from Scotland. That's kind of funny, actually.
I think he was born in Scotland, Jesse. I really do. But
Well, I know, but
so
it's
you got
probably an hour and 25 minutes for me.
that's a good one. Mine from Okay. Sorry. I'm going to go to
Where do you
Winnipeg
go?
next. Winnipeg next.
Winterpeg.
I
Oh,
know
okay.
some-
Winterpeg.
I don't know how, I can't remember how old you said you were, but this card's from 1988.
Okay, so I would have been 3 years old.
Okay. So
What year and what month of 88? What month of 88?
are you asking me or are you asking Andy?
I'm asking you with the
Oh.
Can't ask
card.
me.
How can I ask him? You're oh
September 30th, 1988.
okay.
Wow.
So it would have been
Okay.
like I was born in March of that year. Remember that.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah. Okay. Whatever. Actually, it's an NWA card in Winnipeg.
Beauty.
Starting off with Rick Steiner versus Brad Armstrong. The Colt
Wow.
versus the Russian Assassins with one of my favorite wrestlers, Paul Jones. Mike Rotunda versus Steve Dr. Death Williams. I only saw him once live. It was unbelievable. He did an Oklahoma Stampede. Oh man, the whole building shook just about.
Did you see him in the Brawl for All?
No, it was what?
Brawl for All. He got knocked out in
Yeah.
a real
Got
fight.
knocked out. But I mean, like,
Yeah.
if you want Dr. Death, you got to go, like late NWA, or you got to go to like Mid South if you want
Japan.
like, or Japan, for like good Dr. Death,
The mid south stuff is awesome. I love watching it.
yeah, because he's just a maniac, and they present him as such. It's great.
Jim Ross's boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastics versus the Sheep Herders.
Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
Boom.
Midnight Express and Cornette versus the Arn and Tully.
Oh, that would have been nice.
That would have been great.
Would have been an unbelievable match.
Hopefully that was a 2 out of 3 fall match too, because that would have been fantastic.
Yes.
Even with a DQ finish, it would have been great. This is a stat card. Barry Windham versus Sting.
Oh,
And
wow.
Oh,
main event is Flair versus Luger. So even
it's wild how many times that Flair was actually in Winnipeg. Right. And I didn't realize it until I started going through, history, going through the podcast. Right. And whether it was AWA cards or NWA cards, Flair was in Winnipeg. And even Dusty Rhodes actually was in Winnipeg quite a few times. And I was surprised to learn that. I didn't think it would have been as much as it was. But yeah, it was. Oh boy, he ran a lot of tours here, just really, really crazy. I guess it made sense at the time, right? He was the touring champion, so
yeah, and he would have been on all the undercards here for the AWA
yes.
while he was learning, right? For sure.
Here's a question for you, Andy. Wes and I were guests on another podcast, Schwa Wars, and we did an NWA Champions tournament, and the finals came down to Ric Flair and Lou Thesz, with the question being, who was the better champion? So on the topic of Ric Flair, who do you think who would you pick?
Well, I would think it would almost by default have to be Thesz, I would think, right? If in terms of drawing power, in terms of making the title, in terms of carrying the NWA, in terms of being the champion. Like, don't get me wrong, Ric Flair went and drew massive cards, but in terms of having somebody who, as your champion, could make a star in another territory, like Ric Flair was great. Don't get me wrong, but he didn't make as many stars, in my opinion, as Thesz did. And you can go down the list of Whipper Watson or Kiniski or the Funks or whatever. Like everybody who was anybody had a match with Thesz, either for the title or shortly after the title when he still had name value, right? Flair was an unbelievable champion, carried himself like a champion. He was the NWA for, the 80s essentially.
Yeah.
But in terms of what one meant to the NWA rather than the other one, I would have to say that has meant more, in my opinion. And I'm happy to be corrected if somebody would, have a dissenting opinion.
No, no, it's all good.
Tweets to @6_podcast, but in my opinion, it's Thesz. Yes.
Yeah, and that was our general consensus too.
No, it wasn't. Ric Flair won because you and me are clearly fanboys.
No.
Jim was
Oh,
right.
yeah.
We had a lot of fun with it. That was really good, and
Yeah.
it was great talking about, and it was based on 16 guys who had at least 2,000 matches as world champion,
Yeah.
and so there was Nick Aldis.
Yeah, then you're talking actual like drawing and staying talent, right? Instead of like, the one off, maybe they had 500 to 1,000, right? You can't, although they may have been a big name, they probably didn't have the staying power, you know what I mean? So that was a good way to present that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was so happy to be involved. That was fun, wasn't it, Jesse?
Yeah. Really, really fun. I'm just shocked that, like, it's fun to like dig in and say, look who went where, right? When you look in the history books, like I would have, like, we're what 15 minutes in, and we already showed Billy Graham out east. I would have never thought he would have even went past Quebec.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? So that's kind of cool that you found that card. And then now Ric Flair in Manitoba or Winterpeg.
yeah. There's still snow here.
Yeah, I believe you. Okay, so I'm gonna take down, and we're going to Saskatchewan.
Ooh,
And I have a clip in here.
Ooh, we got to throw it out there.
nice one.
Ooh, okay.
Big Luke McMasters. Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so Leo Burke versus Bobby Bass for the North American Heavyweight Championship. British style bout. 6 5-minute rounds. Steve Wright versus Dynamite Kid.
See, that would have been interesting because I think you would have seen a lot more of the mat work from Dynamite at that point with the British rules. It would have been an interesting match to see.
That would have been cool. Embry and Hart versus Denton and the Cuban. So it doesn't say one or two, it just says Cuban.
Okay.
Probably one. I don't think they would if they had number two. I don't know that they would have been split up on the card.
Mm-hmm. Oshiro versus Fulton. $2,000 challenge. Big Luke McMasters versus Jim Neidhart. So this definitely, it's got to be Stampede card.
What
Yeah,
year?
definitely, yeah.
What is
This is March 4th, 1980 from Regina, Saskatchewan.
Yes, yeah, that would have been a Stampede card.
Yep.
And that would have been. See, it's interesting now we've had Leo Burke twice on two different cards, hey?
Yeah.
He was on your Halifax card, now he's in Saskatchewan.
Yep. It's
$5
couple.
for ringside tickets.
You've got a couple of really interesting guys there. Stu was really famous, really, really famous for bringing over guys from the UK.
Yeah.
And like New Zealand sheep herders or the Kiwis or whatever you want to call them, they were there. It was one of the first places they went to. So you got Luke McMasters there, who's a big fat guy from UK. I think pretty sure. I'm not sure exactly who he was, but I know I think he's more famous as something else. You got Steve Wright, British guy, Dynamite Kid, and who else? Any other British guys on there?
It just says Embry, Hart.
Eric Embry, probably.
Yeah. No, I don't think he is.
Denton. No. Yeah, it just says Embry, Hart versus Denton and Cuban. And Oshiro versus Fulton. So Bobby Fulton, maybe?
Charlie
Fulton. Charlie Fulton?
Yeah. So yeah, he brought tons of guys over. He brought the original Kendo Nagasaki from Britain over, who wasn't that big of a guy, like physically that big of a guy, but he still brought him over. Giant Haystacks he brought over. Mal Kirk he brought over. He never brought over Big Daddy, which was kind of weird because that would have been probably really cool. But
oh, here it is.
And he wanted to come here because he was making too much money over there.
Because he got it all the time.
Well, that too, but did he not have the TV show over there as well?
Yeah, and it was a family thing, right?
Yeah. I wonder if I bet you that kind of negated his opportunity to kind of go travel internationally. Yeah.
Yeah, the Crabtrees were promoter, referee, and Big Daddy, I think.
Yeah.
Big Daddy. There's only one Big Daddy, and that's me. No, I'm just joking. Leo, it says here, Leo Burke's professional North American heavyweight wrestling title is on the line when he faces Bobby Bash. Bobby Bass, holy bud. Bobby Bass tonight at Exhibition Auditorium. It's his second defense in as many weeks. Though his match won't get all the attention, Steve Wright faces Dynamite Kid in a British rules match, and Luke McMaster's 6'11", 500 pounds, takes on 270-pound Oakland Raider football lineman Jim Neidhart in the semifinal. Bret Hart and Eric Embry team up to face Lynn Denton and the Cuban Assassin, and Tsumi Oshiro. Opponent is Bobby Fulton.
Oh,
There you
Bobby
go.
Fulton. Wow. Cool.
That's actually pretty sick.
So we have Bobby Bass in some of our groups. We have Bobby Fulton in some of our groups.
Yes, we do.
And we
Oh,
have
very cool.
yeah, that's it. Jimmy
That's
Hines,
it.
right?
Well, and you got a video message from Bret Hart, so there you go.
Yep.
And literally, I just met Bret Hart on Saturday.
Yeah, I see your pictures. That's unbelievable. You and Jamie Greer both.
Oh, buddy, that was an intense moment for me.
I bet.
And of course, I had to ask about the Sheik.
About what?
I did. That's what I did. I asked about the Sheik. I went up and I was like, "So, can I ask you something?" He's like, "Sure." I'm like, "Why did Sheik only work Calgary twice?" He goes, "Which one?" I'm like, "Well, the original Sheik, the Eddie Farhat, right?" And goes, I don't know. He's too busy running Detroit and Toronto, and he was just probably too busy. He just didn't have time to come out that way. He's always traveling. He's always busy. I'm like, just tell me it's too cold, bro. It's all right. Like,
Or you wanted too much of the gate. One of the two.
Yeah, exactly. 10%, Stu. Come on, cough it up, baby.
yeah. Where do you want to go next, Wes?
I'm going to Quebec.
Okay, let's go.
And I'm going to July 7th, 1986. All mine have been in the 80s, which is really weird for me.
Yeah, strange.
Considering you say it's a shit era. No, I'm just joking.
Paul Sauvé Arena, and it's international wrestling. So we've got a bunch of stars here. We've got Danny Bullwhip Johnson. He's Eric's. His son Eric is one of our group members, and he was on the Wild Man's tours.
Facebook friends.
Gino Brito versus Toshiaki. Alofa is on the card, and that would be Rikishi, right, from WWF.
Yep.
Larry Winters versus Sheik Ali, which you mentioned a couple weeks ago on another podcast. Dino Bravo versus Ron Shaw. And I don't know, Andy, if you ever saw Ron Shaw. He was basically a enhancement on the WWF shows in the 70s.
Okay.
I have no idea why they put that match on, in Dino's hometown, but like,
what year was it?
86, no competition whatsoever. It's like,
Yeah.
When did Bravo jump?
Just after this.
Yes.
It's like, it would be like Nick Bockwinkel headlining the Winnipeg Arena, putting the AWA title on against Puppy Dog Pelican.
Unless they knew he was jumping, and that's why they put him on.
Yeah.
In spot, right?
Yeah. Could be. Cool 6-man tag team matches. The main event: Rick Martel, Tom Zenk, and Dan Crawford versus the Irwins and Steve Strong. So both Scott and Bill Irwin. But I think they knew that Scott was sick, because it wasn't too much longer after this, Danny Johnson was replacing him in the tag team matches as the international tag team champions.
It's always cool to see Rick Martel there too.
Oh, it's always cool to see Rick Martel. I love Rick Martel.
You love his perfume, don't you?
See, there's another guy who was all over the map, right? Like out east, obviously, right? Quebec was a big star there. Ton of time in Ontario. Ran the AWA circuit like crazy. He was here a bunch of times as well, right? It just somebody who, I guess now he's starting to make a presence a little bit more in fan fest and kind of things like that. But for years was just gone, right? When he was done with wrestling, he was finished. So now it's interesting that he's kind of coming back, and now you're starting to hear more stories about him. And now I think people are being kind of reintroduced to what he was bringing at that time. Because you said 86 was that card, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was huge then.
Yeah, and like a massive career because he started when he was like 16 or 17 or something, right?
Yeah.
I met him at one of the Titans dinners in Toronto, and I got his autograph, and it was really cool to shake his hand because he was. I thought he was a good looking guy, like as in good looking, and
Yeah, we get it, bro.
he looked just as sharp, and that was like 15 years ago or something. He looked great, and as you said, Andy, he had said like, yeah, I don't come out to too many things.
Yeah, he went into real estate, I think it was, and that was it. You, and I'm not trying to disparage anybody, but you look at how many guys have just tried to hang on and hang on and hang on. They just this shoot interviews and talking shit about whoever else and blah blah blah. We've all seen it a million times, right? But here's a guy who was a huge star and was done. That was it.
Yeah.
And he almost left people wanting more at that point of it.
Yeah. I mean, he was a world champion. Come on. Yeah, for sure.
Well, Martel, was he big in the AWA first, right? Before WF, or?
He was big in the AWA, yes.
Yeah.
Like huge.
Yes, he was.
And he took the belt off of Hansen, right?
Yeah.
That's the one. I was like, let's not bring up the belt change.
They had no other talent either, right? That was before they had the huge talent purge and really lost everybody.
Yeah.
The purge, the jumping.
Yeah.
Okay. Where am I gonna go?
And I'm not showing anything because all my stuff's on my phone. It'll be posted up after the podcast
or during. You just gotta send it to Johnny G. He's gotta do his thing.
Yeah.
Let's go to Ontario.
Oh,
We haven't gone to Ontario.
Awesome.
So I have two things.
It's only supposed to be one.
Get out of here. One thing's not a card.
Okay.
This one is just one of my favorite things I own.
Who's that?
Very cool.
Who's that?
Who's that? That's you with hair.
Yeah. That's what I look like.
Yeah, I don't know. Just one of my favorite pieces. Obviously being from Toronto or the Ontario area. Maple Leaf Wrestling history is I love researching the area and everything, and Andre is one of my huge researching topics for sure, especially when he comes to this province.
Andy, did you ever see Andre live?
No. I wish.
Yeah, right? Me too. It's pretty cool though when you go through it. It's got like NWA history of world titles and all this. And then of course, two guys you guys will know.
Awesome.
Yes, very cool.
But yeah, one of my favorite pieces. I love this picture. That's like tattoo worthy, bro. I'm telling you. But the card I brought down just to drive Wes crazy.
Oh, it's going to be a Hogan card.
Oh yeah, it is. The first ever Andre and Hogan in Toronto.
Yeah.
Oh, on Stranglehold too. That's cool.
Yeah.
I've seen that cover before.
So we open the cover here. There's the card there.
Nice.
Ooh, King Kong Mosca.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Nice.
So the first match is Frankie Lane versus the Destroyer. Mr. Fuji versus Tony Parise. Speed Hansen and Hossein the Arab versus George Wells and Johnny Weaver. Bobby Duncan versus Ebony Diamond. Andre the Giant versus Hulk Hogan. And Mosca versus Snuka. That would have been nice. March 29th, 1981.
81.
That's a real double main event.
Yeah.
Huge.
Mosca and Snuka would have been just knockout, drag down, both guys gushing the blood.
Just a war. Yeah.
Absolutely. Ebony Diamond too is Rocky Johnson from the East Coast. So
Yep.
I'll show the back because it's
Nice.
signed.
And you know what? That mask was so stupid. Oh my God. Everyone knew. Because I mean, he had those awesome tattoos on his chest,
Yeah.
right? They
Yeah.
took half a second to. And you asked me about tattoos the other day, Jesse, and I was like, yeah, I never thought about that. That
I
was
told you to get the Bam Bam Bigelow.
yeah, that would have been one of the first guys I saw with tattoo.
Imagine Wes with the Bam Bam, Andy.
Coming down like this, all the way scrolled, and being able to do the somersault off the top rope, which would even be more impressive, right?
Yeah.
One guy I wish I could have saw work is Mr. Fuji. Because I always tell Wes I only see him as a manager, right? Like with the Yokozuna and Demolition. But if you go farther, he was a great worker. So it would have been cool to see Fuji.
On YouTube, when I was doing my Angelo Mosca episode, sorry, going another run in here. My cat's gonna join the program now. When I was doing the Mosca episode, I found a match between Mosca and Fuji, and it is excellent.
Okay.
Oh, wow. I'll have to look into that for sure.
I think that was I want to say it was the late 70s, and yeah, really good match.
Was it from Toronto?
From Maple Leaf, I'm pretty sure it's from Maple
Okay.
Leaf. Yeah.
Oh, I was
speaking
never a fan of Mr. Fuji.
Come on, the Pepper Bomb.
Singles guys, tag team with Tanaka, they were vicious. They were awesome.
You didn't ever see him, eh? Only as a manager?
I don't think I saw him live. No, I don't think so.
Did Fuji ever work for the Wild Man or no?
No.
Why? You never know, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy to see who worked for him.
I know that he was out in Stampede, for example. Like he was all over the place, right? So he could have worked for the Wild Man, but obviously you would know better than I would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Certainly big in San Francisco too for a while.
Oh yeah.
Anything you want to touch on Ontario, Wes, with Maple Leaf Wrestling?
No, that was a great card. That would have been one I would have loved to have seen. I saw Andre, but it was WWF cage match. I would have liked to seen him not in a cage, because then he would have been able to use the ropes a little more. And excuse me.
Yeah, you saw him against Kamala, didn't you?
Yeah.
That would have been cool. Kamala in a cage match.
That was brutal. It was awesome. I like Kamala too for a big fat guy. I don't know why some guys they just get under your skin.
Can you just say obese and be politically correct, please?
No, we're not that. I'm not going to curse. I'm not going to swear. But you know what? I'm not politically correct. I'm going to say. Well, I won't say that. No. Okay, so I'm going to Ontario also. Sudbury, 1971.
Sudbury.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is Grand Prix working in Northern Ontario.
Oh.
We got midgets. We got two other matches. The Hollywood Blondes, who are Jerry Brown and Dale Roberts, who ended up being a Freebird, of course, versus Edward Carpentier and Yvonne Robert Jr.
Ooh.
And the second that was the first main event. Sorry, the second main event was Andre versus Paul Bell and Sailor Martin. Who they are, I have no idea. Other than maybe Sailor Martin might have been Frenchie Martin, but I've never heard of Paul Bell ever. It could have been Paul.
Never Frenchie Martin go under any other name, so that's weird.
Yeah, it could have been Paul Belgeron. Could have been one of the Belgeron brothers, but they were that famous, they would have spelt the whole name out.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I tried looking this up in Wrestle Data and a bunch of other things. I couldn't find anything on it at all. And I couldn't actually find the date until I had to research where the Hollywood Blondes were and all the guys that were on the card to put it in, because all I have is June 24th. I think it was probably Saturday night. 71 here. Jesse, I got one of these, and you got to use it a little bit more, okay?
I know.
Your perpetual calendar. 71. Let's see.
The old school way is key, though.
June 24th. It's a Thursday. So Thursday night in Sudbury. Not a Sudbury Saturday night, as Tom and Tom says, but a Thursday. That's
Yeah, you wonder if you ran a Thursday to go compete with the Maple Leaf Wrestling in Toronto, even though it's like a 5-hour drive.
they stayed away as far away from Toronto as they could. The closest they got would have been Sudbury because
What year was this, Wes? Sorry?
71.
Yeah, so this was the same year that Tunney was playing dirty with Dave too. Remember in September of 71, he sent Butcher over there to his show. He sent a little muscle statement like, yeah, we stole your talent tonight, bud. Like, don't you run in my town.
And that's funny because
on that, did you see who the midgets were, or did they just advertise midgets?
it just says midgets, yeah.
Yeah, so I bet you that was the Little Bear and Skylo Low troop at 71. That would have been,
For sure.
especially with Grand Prix. That's been.
Yeah. It would have been the four guys, Skylo Low, Little Beaver,
Little Beaver,
the guy with the beard, Little Brutus, and I mean they were coming out of Quebec like they were making them in a factory, which is they were making midgets.
Holy!
Need him a politically day.
Listen
see
here,
that one.
oh my God. Listen here, Willy Wonka.
Yeah.
Jesus. Like,
So that's my Ontario. Did that surprise you?
I'm surprised that I always forget that Grand Prix came into Ontario.
Yeah.
I always knew they kind of went out more further east.
Yeah, they went through the Ottawa Valley and up to Sudbury and North Bay, but yeah, not any closer to Toronto than that.
Well, like I said, 71, that's when like Frank was like legit mid-chic era. And he's like, yo, this is my town, bro.
Yeah, this is my area. This is my province.
Yeah. Right? Do you know anything about what I'm talking about? That when Dave McKegney went one-on-one with Frank Tunney in the same night in Toronto, and Dave lost a lot of money.
I know he got killed, right? And I think that was the first and last time it happened.
It was.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to think. Oh my goodness. The only comparable one would have been when the big war was happening in Quebec, in Montreal with Grand Prix and
International.
International.
Usual
They were going to, yeah. But I mean that would have went forever because they were just too stubborn and just kept killing each other. The McKegney one, I know he got murdered and that was it. I think that was the end of that one.
Oh yeah, this was Tunney's province. You know, I always say it, man. Stu Hart had Alberta, Tunney had Ontario. But let's get out of Ontario.
Okay, where are we going now, Jesse?
Quebec.
Awesome.
I have my Grand Prix wrestling program I'm busting out today. Don't ask me what it says, boys. Come on, like.
Program de lutte, Grand Prix wrestling program. Kowalski and Vashnav, Mawson. That's a great picture.
It's full of it, really.
I didn't know that you got. I never saw that one before. That's
cool.
Freaking awesome.
And then you switch it around. And then you got on this side.
Nice.
Yeah, with the belt. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah, really nice.
Oh, I love that. I would like that. I'll trade you something for that.
Oh, yeah. I'll take the WrestleMania 3 program. Yeah, it doesn't have a card, though. That's a problem.
Okay.
But it's a great piece. And like I said, I love these pictures on the back, too. Like,
where did you get that, Jesse?
eBay.
eBay?
$15 shipped.
Holy smokes, that's fantastic.
That's a steal.
For sure.
Yeah. Trust me. I was like jumping all over that. I do like Quebec. It's got a really rich history, man, of wrestling with, the Rougeaus and the Britos, and Andre started there.
Like, well, you can even further back than that. And we'll put them on our history hat here for a second, but you go to some of the legends of the lumberjack wrestlers from like the 1800s. oh, I Paul Bunyan, like the American folklore, whatever, was based off a guy from Quebec, a lumberjack from Quebec. Like they just basically stole the whole story and turned it into the story of Paul Bunyan in America. And I can't remember his name off the top of my head. If it comes to me, I'll blurt it out later. But there was two guys specifically from that 1870s to 1890s doing the lumberjack wrestling thing that were just maniacs, and there's a ton of folklore about them, and a ton of research actually has been done about them by somebody who may be me, and it may be on an episode later on of the program. Yeah, I was tipped off by actually a listener of the show, and I was fascinated. So that's something I've been digging into. But it's who would have think that something from the 1800s would be hard to find stuff on?
Yeah.
Wow, it really brings a light to that. You said the lumberjack thing, because there's a Quebec independent wrestling team, Tabernacle the Team, and they are the lumberjack. They wear lumberjack like clothes and all that, and that's like their gimmick. So that's kind of interesting that you bring that up. Kind of like, oh, wait a sec, maybe they kind of know a little bit about that too, right?
Well, it's neat because, based in history and based on fact, these are individuals, and then you fast forward, almost 100 years, and you have Joe LeDuc doing the Canadian lumberjack gimmick, right? And that's where lumberjack matches end up starting. That was his specialty match,
Yeah.
right? So it's fast. And now you're saying these guys, right? It's fascinating that you can just pull this thread throughout the history of Canadian wrestling, and it just is something that is perpetuated, generation to generation. Very interesting.
I love the Quebec history. It's so fantastic. I love there's a couple of really good Facebook pages, Golden Age of Wrestling, the Lutte d'Or, and the Eddie Quinn, which doesn't really get that much posts anymore, but it's a great post also. And we try to post whenever we can in those pages, because we're all about, we find stuff on Quebec all the time too, so it's really cool. I loved the Grand Prix promotion when I was a kid. We got it on TV in Toronto. It was fantastic, just so exciting and different from the tiny stuff that we saw every Saturday. Also,
I have Quebec stuff. When I was, I just went to Quebec, Andy, with our editor Johnny G, and we did 4 wrestling shows in 3 days. And,
okay. I've seen some of your pictures on and videos on Facebook there.
yeah. So I was showing them these fans that I met. Shout out to Sebastian, my new Facebook friend and wrestling fanatic from Quebec. And I showed him that.
okay.
Oh, very cool. Yeah.
I guess from a mutual friend, AC. Let me have these.
Patera and Blackjack and the Superstar, nice.
Yeah.
And then here's a couple more from Quebec too.
Nice.
Yeah, very cool.
Right? It's just like, it's amazing how popular pro wrestling has been throughout our history and across the whole country.
Yeah.
And like you could pick superstars out of almost every province, and that's what I'm going to do right now, Wes. I'm going to take this train. I'm going to take this train from Quebec. Sorry, Andy, what were you going to say?
No, I was saying you could pick superstars from almost every province and almost every era going back to 1875.
Do you have any favorites you like to look up across this province? Like the Canada, I should say? Like guys that you like to research or anything? Like Canadian-wise?
Well, I mean, so many are just, abject people related to whatever monthly subject I'm researching. And I'm bad for falling in the hole, right? So there'll be a name I'm not familiar with, and then I start reading on that person, and then I'm off in this promotion, and then all of a sudden 4 hours have gone by and I've done no work. So, but there's, like obviously with the focus on the one person a month and just do it and building the story, right? I get into a lot of it, right? So have I met a favorite one that I've researched yet? Maybe Billy Two Rivers, and George Gordienko was fascinating because the whole communist conspiracy, and then that's why he never won the NWA world title. That was a whole wild ride. Maybe those are two of my favorite ones, but just every month there's just something like it's insane.
Why Billy Two Rivers?
Because I read about him, and so like Jesse, we're the same age. I'm pretty sure, or like whatever, we're close enough for rock and roll, right?
Yeah.
But when I was in kindergarten was the same time that I started kindergarten, and then the Oka crisis started a month later, right?
Okay.
So that was happening when I was starting school, so I was inundated with that at an early age, and then as I went through school, then it was in the history books, and then Billy Two Rivers was a name that was coming up in history books because of the actions at Mercer Bridge.
Yeah.
That was the whole shutdown. I could spend an hour on just what happened with the Oka crisis, but regardless, it was a name that I was familiar with in high school. Get out of high school, life happens, and then I started the podcast. And when I was researching names for the first season, I came across Billy Two Rivers. I'm like, why does this sound so familiar, this name? And then lo and behold, this guy who was a megastar wrestler in England, in Japan, in Germany, Australia, was the same Billy Two Rivers who shut down the Mercer Bridge during the Oka crisis, and then was a big time elder leader for the Mohawk Nation out of Ganawage. So, yeah, it's fascinating.
Wow.
You never know where these people have been, or where they're coming from, or what they've done. Sometimes it's wild.
That's right. I remember the Oka crisis. Yeah, it was pretty tense.
Yeah, and we're still feeling the ramifications today, right? So it hasn't gone away.
No,
It's not, like that's a cool thing too, Andy. What we and Wes do, like we can compare the times with our age difference, right? Like he remembers WrestleMania in Toronto on closed circuit when all that was going down, right? It's like, hey man, and that's a benefit. Like I get to always ask him, hey man, what was going on when this was happening? And it's really cool to match up events like that, like you just said, because I always reference like Fritz von Erich and Hans Hermann and all these Germans in the 50s
Yes.
when World War II ended in 1945, and then you got a guy holding a Nazi flag in 1950 saying, I'm from Germany. Like, this is when people think wrestling's real, right? So
Huge heat.
we like to put depending on the episode, we like to put some reference on things because we know that people your age and people that are our editors' age, they can't correlate these things, and it's interesting. We try to every episode put something in perspective so that people can get a real grasp on exactly what was going on at the time frame, if it's all pertinent, right?
mhm.
Well, it's interesting too because especially from a Canadian perspective, Canada's boring. Is
Yeah.
is the general thesis for many people around the world. But when you look at these time frames and what was happening in Canada at that time, it's fascinating to look at focal points in professional wrestling relating to focal points that were happening either in Canadian politics or other sports in Canadian history, or even advents of modern medicine, and what's all happening in that time frame, as I getting run in on here again. But it's fascinating how you can kind of, yeah, the wrestling was huge and it really was, but here was all these other fascinating things happening at the same time, and it Canada is far from boring, and our wrestling history is far from boring as well.
I agree 100%.
I agree too. Good point.
Yeah. I mean, we're a little Ontario biased, but as we answered your questions on our episode, Ask Us Anything, which is available live this week on the channel. Where do you want to go next, Wes?
I'm going to British Columbia. March 21st, 1964, Victoria, BC, which is going to be the next place in Canada I visit. I love the island. It's a great place. I loved it out there, but I didn't get to Victoria, so that's my next stop in my world travels. Sorry, Canadian travels. Great card here with some of the guys you mentioned earlier from BC, Jesse. Bad Boy Shields, who ended up he was out of the Boston fake guys' names. Was that like Jack Pfeiffer kind of thing?
The knockoff names. I know what you're talking about.
Bad Boy Shields, I think, ended up being that trucker guy in the AWA. Bull Belinsky, I think his name was. He was going up against Kenji Shibuya, who was a really famous Japanese wrestler. Enrique Torres versus Roy Collins, who I think ended up being Ripper Collins, I think. Dale Lewis, who was a famous collegiate wrestling star, had a really good serious background, versus Mike Sharp, who was Mike Sharp, not Mike Sharp Jr. Bearcat Wright versus Gene Kiniski. Wow. And the main event was Bulldog Brower versus Don Leo Jonathan.
That would have been
yeah, massive. A big, tall guy against a fire plug.
Yeah, Bulldog Brower is one of my favorites. I sent you an article I wrote about him, and you actually enjoyed it.
I love Brower. He's just a maniac. And it didn't matter if he was a good guy or a bad guy. He was maniacal. He was fantastic. I loved him. And you got a couple Canadian guys there.
The Kiniski match would have been nice.
Bearcat Wright was kind of famous guy too. The first black wrestlers to hold a championship belt in California. So yeah, that's not a bad card. I'd be paying my $1.50 to see that ringside. 1964, man, oh man.
Do you think Alberta had a stronger promotion with Stampede over All-Star?
I do. They had a bigger area. I think the mountains hinder. I don't know that much about that territory that BC had, other than Victoria, what they used to announce on the TV show, where all the cards were Cloverdale, and but they used to go down to state of Washington and Seattle and stuff. So that was part of their territory also. So it was more of a sort of like inside the mountains, inside the Rockies, and then down south. Whereas Stu had Alberta, Saskatchewan, part of Montana for a while. He had, and I couldn't even imagine. I researched some of the Stampede cards, and you start looking at like February. Those guys are hitting those cards like the 200-300 mile drive from Calgary to Regina or Saskatoon and stuff. Like, my God, I couldn't imagine driving.
So there's in my opinion, there's two reasons why Stampede was a larger promotion, or however you want to phrase it, than All-Star. So one is the talent relations that Stu had with the different countries, right? Like we were talking about earlier, bringing in stars from Japan, Australia, New Zealand, from Britain, right? Yeah. He had all these connections that weren't just from the NWA, and that's another thing to keep in mind, right? It's not like the NWA was facilitating this; he was the one making the moves, right? Mm-hmm. And then the other thing is, and this is one that a lot of people forget, is Stampede had far better television than All Star did, because All Star Wrestling, the television programs were never very good, right? Whereas Stampede Wrestling, say what you want about who is the goddamn announcer there? His name is escaping me now. What's that?
What, for Vancouver or for Stu?
From Stu. Ed Whalen.
Whalen, yeah.
Obviously, when you think about Ed Whalen, the Stampede shows were a lot better than the All-Star Wrestling shows. So, in my opinion, those are the two reasons why more people would have preferred and still prefer the Stampede Wrestling show than the All-Star Wrestling show.
Do you think Maple Leaf Wrestling was the best across the country at that point? Like, it had the best production value, I would assume.
In terms of production value, I would say so. Right, because you had everything there, right? The CBC and all the big telecommunications networks were there, right?
Yeah.
You have to keep in mind the eras that we're talking about, the 50s, 60s, 70s, out west, it was really still the Wild West at that point, right? I think Calgary and Edmonton's populations were what, 500,000 or something like that back then. Like it's nowhere near what it is today.
Yeah, it's always cool to put perspective on that and the time frames and what is local and what is like what could help. And you're right, like I never even thought of that. Oh yeah, shit, like all the stuff's right here.
Stampede's production was just terrible. Oh my God, one camera.
Yeah, it was.
Back in the day, in the black and white days, yeah.
What I mean by a better show is because the show had more action and it had more variety than All Star. Right. That's what I mean. I don't mean that it was a 10 camera shoot and 50,000 camera cuts like the seizure inducing WWE nowadays, but like that's what I mean by a better show or a more fan friendly show.
They had such, can't really say they had better talent, but they had a lot more exciting matches, and they, like you said, definitely Stu had more of a draw than Pacific Coast ever did.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Right. I don't know why, but it was probably just Stu.
Didn't you say in Toronto that when TV came, all three were on at the same day on Saturday?
Yeah. Yeah. We got BC, we got Stampede, and we got Toronto and Montreal and WWF. We had 5 shows every day, every Saturday. It was amazing.
Walk.
It was amazing.
Well, guess what? Nowadays we have one every night. So
yeah, but how many there are watchable?
Yeah, Blood and Guts was tonight. Okay. For modern wrestling fans, you'd be interested to know that Kyle O'Reilly from AEW is Canadian from British Columbia.
Yep.
So some modern fans watch our show. It's kind of cool to throw those kind of facts and things out. I think I even did that on your show in a future episode with the John Cena Vince McMahon reference to Whipper Watson and Tunney.
Yeah.
So
that famous masked wrestler Mil Mascaras is not Canadian. He's not.
No.
There was a really small rumor at one time.
Was it originated in Toronto by chance?
Probably.
It's funny because he would tell where he came from. So they just
some weed smoking dude down by Maple Leaf Gardens hanging out looking for some shit. But I think the funny thing is I did see something where I'm sure Aaron Rodriguez wrestled in Winnipeg.
So I would have no idea. I'd have to go in my
I'm sorry.
My office tonight. So
I'm thinking of someone else. Sorry. Never mind.
Well, then I won't go to the office.
We'll go to Winnipeg again. I pulled a piece, one of my only pieces. January 17th. Holy, that must have been a cold day. 1958.
Wow. That's the oldest one so far.
Promoter was Alex Turk.
Yeah.
Johnny Rougeau defeated the Red Bastien.
Red Bastien, yeah.
Yeah. Trust me, I'm so bad with names, bro. It's Yvonne Robert. What did I say before?
Oh,
I said,
you were terrible.
I said Yvonne Robert.
Yeah.
He's like, dude.
Yvonne Robert, yeah.
Here, let's see.
Nice. Oh, Don Leo Jonathan on that card too. And
Wow.
Kazaboski? Can't read it.
Read that one out now. I got about half that.
So it's Fritz Von Erich versus Hard Boiled Haggerty.
Yeah, which would have been unreal.
Don Lito Jonathan and Chet Wallach versus Paul Ballangino and Lionel Ballangino. So Ballangino brothers, I guess, or Bellagio.
Bale's you're on.
Yeah. Fuck me in the French. I was French exempted in grade 6, god damn it.
There was 5 brothers. Tony, Paul, Adrian, then 2 others.
The Ramones or what? Like, and
Joe-
then yeah,
Joey, DG, and yeah. John.
Farmer Martin versus Joe Pazendak.
Hashtag, yeah.
Yeah.
Who was the Minneapolis promoter?
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, he trained. He was a big time trainer in Minneapolis. He trained actually quite a few guys from Winnipeg, including he handpicked and trained George Gordienko.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
And you said this was from what, 55 or 58?
58.
Okay, so I think the Farmer Martin guy is another one of those like ridiculously famous old school guys who's like one of those guys that would tie people up in knots and break their arms and all their fingers without even blinking.
See, I want to say that Farmer Martin was no, but that wouldn't make any sense because he would have been like 80 then too. Yeah, it won't be the same one. Never mind.
Maybe
I
that's
wanted
not-
to just related to the training of Jack Taylor, but I'm in way different era here.
That's what I was thinking of. Yeah, Jack Taylor guy. That's a good one. And Haggerty versus Von Erich.
Von Erich.
Yeah, that
Well,
would
it
have been
makes sense too,
What's that?
with Fritz being in Winnipeg at 58, because that's when,
frame. Yeah.
yeah, like even in the 50s too, he was like from Toronto to Buffalo. He did the Ontario circuit a few times.
What's the venue?
The venue? Winnipeg Auditorium.
Okay. Is that the same as the arena?
No, it's a different place.
Different place?
Yeah.
It's cool here.
The auditorium is actually where the Manitoba Archives is now, I believe.
Okay.
Building, yeah.
This is a cool fact. It says on the article here. In a semi wind-up, the brothers Paul and Lionel fought a 30-minute draw against Don Leo Jonathan and Chet Wallach, who fought without his famous twin partner Johnny Valentine.
Oh, okay. Whatever.
Yeah, and then it says here, January 24th, popular Vern Gagne meets Don Leo Jonathan in the main event.
Yeah, there you go.
Nice. So someone was telling me that the arena, the old arena, used to be where the Polo Park is.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, because I played hockey there when I was a kid, and I was like, I went looking for it when I moved here, and I was like, where's the? You think it would be downtown, but that was way out of town.
So, where Polo Park is, there used to be actually the Winnipeg Arena and Canadiens Stadium, which is where the Bombers play, the outdoor venue where the Bombers play. So
Okay.
they were side by side, and Polo Park is obviously a massive shopping complex for anybody who's not from here. It was like those three were like, that was the entertainment hub almost, like, for, you know what I mean? So, but now we have the MTS Center, which is downtown, and now the Bombers play out of IG Field, which is by University of Manitoba for some reason. Well, I know why it's there, but that's a whole other thing we don't need to get into tonight.
It's a nice big football field. I've driven by a couple times.
Yeah, it's big. I think it holds 38,000, can be expanded to 40 something. So for CFL, that's pretty solid.
Yeah. Cool.
Wes, we haven't done PEI Newfoundland either.
Okay, I got 4 still.
I'd rather go to Newfoundland, but you know.
I'm going
Newfoundland. You like that?
and another 80s card. And this is special because this is a card that actually was advertised, never took place, and you'll know why in a sec here. July 25th, 1988. Big card in Port Hawkesbury, Newfoundland. Whipper Watson Jr. versus Adrian Adonis, Cubby Baxter and Little Mr. T. Also, Hartford Love versus Igor Volkov, Vic Rosatani, Ricky Johnson, Gentle Ben, Rocky Del Serra, Steve Ocean, and of course, Willie the Wolfman and the Wild Man. And that's a card that just never took place because of the accident. Oh, and the Kelly twins were there too.
Yeah, the accident happened early July, right?
Yep. Yep.
So I also have a reprint poster of that tour that never took place, thanks to our boy AC.
That was I just wanted to touch on Wild Man's promotion just for half a sec. I didn't want to do one of his cards because this is more. I thought this was more important. Sad time for all three of those guys who died. Which
and also to touch on that too, if you're listening to this show, Canada Day's already passed, and we're we're in that time frame of celebrating the death anniversary of Dave and
22 and 12, 34 years ago.
So there you go.
Yeah.
Sad moment in Canadian pro wrestling history. Wes went to the Wild Man show. I don't know. Do you know much about the Wild Man, Andy? I'm just curious. I'm not too sure.
A whole lot. Honestly, the majority of what I know about the promotion is what I got from your old program. So that was kind of my introduction to him, and obviously what I've learned through researching different aspects of Grappling with Canada. So the Moscow episode had a little bit of that. Which other one would have had some? I can't remember off the top of my head, but anyways, not a whole lot for not yet, at least anyways.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, there's a Facebook group that you can join, and Johnny G, right there. I know you're probably mad.
Yeah.
I just like doing cool things, and then John does cool things. It lines it up nice. Okay, let's touch. I'll go all the way to Alberta. This is another one of my favorite pieces that I got off eBay.
Ooh, body press. Nice.
With Davy Boy on the front.
What a stud. What a stud, man. When he got juiced up, he was so huge, man. Unbelievable.
The card. Calgary, Friday, October 7th, 1983. Mike Hammer versus Phil LaFleur. Tag team is Keith Hart and Bruce Hart versus Carl Moffat and Cal Manson. Tag team match is Cuban Assassin and Francesco Flores and Mr. versus Mr. Hito and Hercules Ayla. Ayla, most likely. I'm gonna take your word on that. It's insane how many books I read, and I can't even read out loud. Handicap match: Davey Boy Smith and Steve Logan versus the Cobra and Hiro Satito and Althal Foley. And then in the main event is the tag team match: Brett and Stu Hart versus J.R. Foley and Stomper Golden. Or Goldie, sorry.
Goldie, yeah.
Stomper what?
Stomper Goldie, Archie Goldie.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's the whole card there.
Have you done anything on Archie Goldie?
Yes, last year I did a deep dive on Archie Goldie. Tremendous episode. Yeah. And not just because it's on my program, but yeah, that was a great episode. 83, I want to say that's when he just came back and was feuding with Stu. I think that was after the okay, how did that feud go now? J.R. Foley had his stable, and they were all in the ring. I can see it in my mind. And they were giving Waylon a hard time, and Stu came in, and Goldie came in and put the boots to Stu Hart, and ended up being saved by Brett. And I think that's where this match was the culmination of that. But they had a big feud that whole 83 into 84 when Archie had come back. I think he came back from Tennessee at that point.
Okay.
Mhm.
Was that when they used his son as the gimmick?
No, that was 80. That was late 84, and that's what started the riot and then got them kicked off television.
Yeah, yeah.
That's wild.
I love Gold. He was fantastic. Like I thought Davey Boy was the stud, and he was, but Goldie was like the
She goalie was incredible. Funny enough, so you're talking about the thing with his son, right? I actually went and found the audio of his interview after it happened when the arena's cleared out because the riot happened,
yeah.
and there's like people, cleaning up in the background, and it's a spotlight, and it's Ed Whalen and Archie Goldie, and you have, if you've seen, maybe Jesse may not have seen an Archie Goldie promo ever before, but he had this like just this animalistic like energy to him, not in like a crazy Macho Man Savage, right? But you just tell he was seething and boiling under the surface, right, as he was doing his promo. This was like totally opposite. He looked heartbroken. His voice was wavering. He looked like he was about to burst into tears.
Yeah.
It was like It was like he looked like a broken man. I'd never seen anything like it. It is unbelievable, and I found that audio and had it inserted into that program. It was so just stunning.
I watched that part of that match just a few weeks ago, and it was very emotional. They're in the one corner after with Ed Whalen, and Ed's like, oh, like you can see Ed's going like, wow, what the hell? This is not Archie Goldie, and he was just about in tears. Yeah,
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
wild.
when Bad News Allen laid the pile driver and was going after fans after, and yeah, just what a wild scene. And yeah, killed the territory.
you're not kidding.
Eventually, not that one specific thing, but then things after killed it. And Ed Whalen didn't help the situation either. But that's a whole other thing to get into.
Yeah.
I just want to point out the fact that Stu always brought in the Japanese guys. And I want to tell everybody that watching that maybe we could just quickly touch on how popular, like how many popular Japanese guys came through our country. Giant Baba went through all of Ontario, like fought Johnny Valentine in like London. Frank Tunney used him. And like we keep saying all these Japanese names. I don't know if you guys want to quickly touch on that too.
Well,
Anything?
you said the one name there, Cobra, which is George Takano, right? Was a massive, famous Japanese wrestler who basically, I think it was sent to Calgary to get seasoned to go back in Japan.
And that's what they do, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
part of
that's
the
like
culture.
you look at a guy like Tiger Mask, right? He was sent to Calgary to learn the style, and then went back to Japan and was a huge star.
Yeah.
Right. And you can go on down the line. Oh my God.
Well, Mark Rocco, Rollerball Rocco, went to Calgary to go back to Japan to turn into, was he Black Pegasus or Black something, right? Mark,
Yes.
the UK wrestler.
Yeah. But there's like Inoki was here in Canada as well, and I believe that was from Maple Leaf, if I'm not mistaken. It might have been Montreal, but one of the two. But you look at some of the biggest stars from those eras from Japan, they all came here in one way, shape, or form, right?
Yeah.
And then conversely, you look at how many Canadians went over there to make the Japanese stars at the same time, right? That's something we touched on in when I did the Kiniski episode, right?
Mhm.
Because that's what really cemented Giant Baba was that Kiniski Baba feud when they again had the big riot and fans were throwing the chairs, and it was just a wild scene, right? But that's what he needed to get himself elevated, right? So
Mhm.
it's interesting.
It's like Antonio Inoki too. Like there's another one. But you mentioned guys going to Japan and then coming back. Chris Benoit did it with Eddie Guerrero. Chris Jericho is another Canadian that went over there. Kenny Omega for the modern fans. Omega was bigger in Japan, and then he came here and was big, right? So,
well, you want to look at a guy like John Tenta, right? Who
Yes.
went to Japan for sumo, was a record-setting sumo wrestler. I still believe that 2 of his records have still never been broken. He's essentially the greatest gaijin sumo wrestler of all time. And then stuff happens there. He has to kind of get smuggled out of the country. And
Yeah.
then goes back and then does the pro wrestling thing.
yeah.
And I liked him too. He started out in BC, and I liked him. He was pretty good.
Oh, hell of a drop kick.
Drop kick.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you've never seen him when he was a little bit lighter, he would like get up and fully extend. It was unbelievable.
I have one more clipping I wanted to show, but I can't find it right now on my phone. Where is it? Anyways, can't find it. Damn it! I'll have to put it up. It was Luthez versus the Sheik in Ontario.
Okay.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
That's on the phone somewhere. Thanks to Superfan out of BC, Cliff. Always sends me stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Wes, I'm out of stuff. Where do you want to go?
I got 3 more.
Okay, let's go.
PEI, Charlottetown, June 23rd, 1955. Al and Tiny Mills, a couple guys you're probably familiar with, Andy, versus Bob Geigel and Frank Valois, who was Andre the Giant's handler before Vince took over.
Yep.
And then there was 2 additional matches with the 4 guys doing 2 singles matches, which used to be a really big thing back in the day. And we look at some of the cards like in Toronto at Maple Leaf Gardens in the 70s, and there was like 13 matches and there was like 30 wrestlers on the card. And then you go back to this and you think, well, the fans got ripped off, but 3 matches, probably one was a 20-minute draw. The other one was 2 out of 3 falls, probably 45 minutes, and the main event was probably an hour. So, I mean, it wasn't like they were getting ripped off, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't mean to cut you off, but you look at spot shows from 60s, 70s, 80s, and there was like same thing, like six guys on the card, but there would have been 8 matches, right? Because you would have had like a couple of singles matches, couple of tags, and then maybe a battle royal finishes the thing off, right? It's how you were able to maximize your available talent at the time, right? Let's face it, you're not gonna fly in 30 wrestlers to PEI in the 50s. It's not happening.
No.
They would have been on the East Coast tour.
Yeah.
Which is evident from my next card, which is Moncton, New Brunswick. And that's later on in the summer 1955, July 4th, 1955. And Ali Pasha, whoever that is, the name's recognizable, but I know he was someone else. And Bob Geigel versus Frank Valois and Johnny Rougeau. And then in the main event on that card was Cowboy Len Hughes, who was the promoter down east, going against the original Gorgeous George. So George made a tour of the East Coast. I couldn't find anything prior or after. I think he flew in probably from Montreal, I guess, or New England, hard to say.
Wow.
Yeah, so
56, you said?
55.
Oh, 55. Okay.
Wow.
So do you know anything about the Mills brothers you can tell us?
No, I don't know a whole lot at this stage.
Two guys from Saskatchewan?
Yeah, I don't know a whole lot. I have
Alberta.
I have some on them, but it's related to something else. I can't really say it right now, but
yeah, that's fine.
I just wondered. I think they're from Camrose, Alberta. That's where I think they're from. And I think their tag team moniker was Murder Incorporated or something like that. They had a title. Okay, that's those 2. Last one for me is Regina, Saskatchewan, and I got a clipping and the results from this one. This is 1964, February 5th, 1964. Can you imagine driving from Edmonton or Calgary to Regina? Stampede card. Mighty Ursus versus Waldo Von Erich. Sweet Daddy Siki versus Dave Rule. Bob Siza Nandor versus Killer Conroy. And Mike Valentino versus Dave Dubois. And the card got mixed up because of the snow, probably. Tex McKenzie, who was in the area also, came out of the stands to replace injured Siki, to beat a guy named Al Ward, who may have been the guy who set the ring up. And Luis Hernandez beat Dave Rule. So Siki was out. Interesting because 3 of these guys all started out in Ontario with the Red Garner stuff, which is a wild man. Waldo and Mike Valentino, Baron Cicluna, and Dave Dubois. Now,
did you see that Rule worked twice on that card? Sorry.
No, he was originally scheduled to go against Siki, but Siki was injured.
Okay, I got you. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think Dave Rule ever worked twice in his life in one night. Have you ever seen him wrestle? Have you ever watched any of his matches?
Not that I can recall off the top of my head. That's not to say that I haven't, but yeah, off the top of my head, I can't picture one.
He was a kind of a thick kind of guy, older, but I considered he was pretty boring. He's very, very popular, right, on Stampede circuit, but boring.
Tell us how you really.
Yeah.
So, Dave had Terrible Ted in the 60s, and he went right across Canada 2 or 3 times. So he would have went across every town in Stampede with Terrible Ted. And I've got a lot of that on the Wildman page also. Mm-hmm. So I'm pretty sure he had Ted with him on this trip. It just
didn't make the card. Yeah.
When did he purchase Ted from Stu?
No, he didn't purchase him from Stu.
Oh, I thought Terrible Ted was purchased from.
Oh, he brought Terrible Ted to Stu, is my understanding.
Yeah, he lived there they were based there, I guess, for a winter or something.
Oh, okay.
Or a summer.
Stu never had ownership of any of the animals that ever worked. It's such a weird thing to say. The animals that worked in the ring.
Yeah.
Yeah. The picture of Stu wrestling a tiger with his street clothes on. I can't even imagine. It's hard to imagine how tough he must have been. Like, he wasn't like overly muscular or anything. How many 1,000 kids or something, and how tough he was. It just logic completely defied there, right? He was the cook of the house and everything. Jeez. Unbelievable guy.
Are you the maid in your house, Wes?
I do the dishes.
Oh, I know. I've watched you do the dishes on a video chat before. Boys, we showed everything. We talked all the cards, but before, let's do one quick rundown. Name a wrestler that you like from the province. Canadian wrestler, doesn't matter what era, or a match that you have to look up on YouTube, or anything about the province that you just like in general. So I'll go first. Gene Kiniski would be my favorite thing to research in BC. My favorite wrestler to research out of BC would be Gene Kiniski, just like Wes, I'm sure.
My favorite wrestler to research in Canada would probably be Gene Kiniski.
In Canada, but like I'm talking just BC.
Okay. I love Gene Kiniski. I
know you do.
Everything. He was so good. Oh man.
So we're sticking with BC right now?
No.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying Great Gama Singh, because he was born in BC.
So there you go.
And I actually did an episode on him last year, and what a great wrestler he was.
Alberta, favorite thing about Alberta? Anything or wrestler? Doesn't have to be old school. It can be modern too.
Well, I gotta say Bret Hart, so I'm gonna get that out of the way.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say Stomper.
Yeah.
See, yeah, Stompers, yeah, unbelievable.
I do like Bret Hart, but I do take a lot of pride that the British Bulldogs started in Calgary.
Okay, we'll kind of give you that stretch.
Yeah.
They're the adopted children.
Yes.
Yeah, the adopted children. Just like Andre's an adopted Quebecer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. Saskatchewan.
I'm gonna say, well, no, but we should talk. If you want to talk event, we got to talk about the title change between
Yes.
Bret Hart and Roddy Piper. That
Oh,
happened
there
in
you go.
Saskatchewan. Also, I believe Bret Hart's first title win was in Saskatchewan, world title win
Oh, wow.
Didn't he beat Flair?
for the title. Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. Won it from Flair. Yeah,
Yeah.
Look at it. That's actually pretty sick. I didn't know that.
from Saskatchewan. Yeah, there we go.
Cool.
Wow.
And also, here's one. Don Callis and his crew killed Regina when they had whoever their big star football player was making his entrance. He was going to be in a huge match. They sold out some arena, whatever, and he was showboating, came off the second rope and broke his ankle, and they had to call the show, and they killed the town. It just never drew after that. I think that was there's three things from Saskatchewan.
Wow.
And he comes in deep with the Saskatchewan talk.
Yeah,
That's actually
thanks,
so funny. I look into Don Callis' crew and shit.
Yeah.
Manitoba, favorite thing to research, favorite wrestler, favorite anything?
I'll go last here.
I'll say Piper, even though he's not from here, but Piper. I've heard so many stories from people since I've moved here about, oh, I knew Roddy Piper. Oh, I saw Roddy Piper do this, and I saw Roddy Piper do that. And you wouldn't believe what I saw Roddy Piper do.
Well,
Ask anyone about the Windsor Park Inn, and then see how many stories they have.
Okay.
oh.
Trust me. Roddy
I know.
Piper on a bouncer in the Windsor Park Inn. That's all. If anybody knows him and knows those stories, I had a few on our Roddy Piper episode, but yeah, if you can find any of those, I highly encourage it.
There you go, Wes. When you're out there working, stop in.
I work with a guy who's I'm a Mason, and I was just talking to him about Masonic things, and he said, "Oh, my dad was a Mason." He said, "My dad also used to run the Selkirk Pipe and something band," and he said that's where Roddy Piper learned to play the bagpipes. My dad taught Piper to play the bagpipes, and I was like, "Yeah, okay." I didn't say this, but I'm thinking in my mind, yeah, everyone says that they whatever. So that was pretty interesting to hear. And
Yeah,
that's like 10 minutes up the road from me.
that's actually pretty neat. You should go there, see it. You're like, no, I'm not
Okay.
wasting. Gas is $2. What are
Yeah,
you,
whatever.
crazy? My favorite thing about Winnipeg would be Chris Jericho.
That's a good
Come
one.
on, I grew up in the Attitude Era.
Yeah.
You dirty trash bag, filthy ho, trash bag ho.
I'm from Winnipeg, you idiot.
Yeah, that was so funny. Oh my God. Go back. Yeah, he's like, go back to California or something like that.
Yeah.
A fan yelled at him
Yeah.
It's
out
like
of the
back
crowd.
to Toronto.
Yeah, he's like, go back to Toronto. And he goes, the Jericho, I'm from Winnipeg, you idiot.
Yeah, and he goes right back into the match. It's tremendous.
Just right back into the match. But yeah, if I had to face anything out of Winnipeg, Chris Jericho is definitely my favorite Canadian wrestler out of Winnipeg.
Nice.
I'm going to go way off the board here. And it's not my favorite thing per se, but one of the more interesting stories that I've been researching regarding the history aspect is the McEwen family that were prevalent, we'll say, in the early 1900s. I want to say from 1905 to 1925. And they were essentially a family who had their mitts in all of the less than savory aspects of Winnipeg, but a couple of things that they were involved with was wrestling and boxing. And they were a family who fought against the segregation of professional wrestling and amateur wrestling. They wanted everything to kind of be together, which really ended up culminating in guys like Jack Taylor and who are the other ones that came here and had a huge it was a Japanese wrestler, and I can't remember his name. It's off the top of my head. But anyways, they were kind of the catalyst for allowing things like that to happen here in Winnipeg. And there's not a lot known about them, except that they fought constantly, they drank hard, they partied hard, they ran everything in that you could, underground gambling rings,
Okay.
underground sales, and just the whole entertainment side of Winnipeg was essentially through this family. Yeah, just a wild story and something that I need to explore a little bit more. But I started getting into it, and I'm like, okay, here we go. There's something something I got to dig into a little bit more.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Ontario. Favorite thing to research, look into, favorite wrestler out of Ontario. Who wants to go first?
Definitely getting more research on Dave McKegney for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Not that he's my favorite wrestler or anything. It just, that was my impetus to start putting stuff on Facebook, and it's never gonna stop.
How long? It's been 5 years you run in that group.
It's been just about, it's 6.5.
Wow.
Just about. Yeah. And I every day I look and I'm amazed by how it's grown and what it is and what it's become. So it's a testament to what I have as a huge love, and it's a big love.
Yeah, you do great work, Wes, and I'm glad to contribute when I can.
Thank you.
What was your favorite match you saw in Ontario? Because you saw a few. There's got to be one that stands out.
I without a doubt, it would be the first time I saw the Sheik like 10 feet away from me.
Yeah, and is that the time he chased you away, or you ran away?
Oh, that was another one. The first one was in a hall, and I was like 2 seats ringside, 5 feet away from you, bleeding all over the place, chasing after Louis Martinez. Just bizarre.
Yeah, Andy.
Honestly, it's not a match and it's not a person, but it's the amount of ticket sales in Ontario throughout history is an astounding number. And, whether you're looking just at the Maple Leaf side of things, when you expand that to include what was happening before the Tunnies, after the Tunnies, even with, still the WWF coming in, it's shocking almost how many tickets have been sold. Like, we're talking tens of millions of tickets in Ontario. And, when you further extrapolate that into how much money has been generated by professional wrestling, not just by the promotions, but also for the local economies, is something that I don't think gets explored enough. I know Vance Nevada has a book coming out soon, and he's going into for the business side of things. I'm not sure if you guys have had a conversation with him yet or not.
Yes, I have for sure.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what he's able to produce for total ticket sales throughout the eras, because a lot of the 1900s to 1930s is hit and miss for information.
Yeah.
However, you can extrapolate that to today's dollars, and it's an astronomical number. And if I would love for somebody to actually figure out not only what that income was, but what the spin-off income is for the economy in Ontario, I think people would be blown away to see how instrumental wrestling still is to Ontario.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting way of looking at things.
I wrote an article on, I can't remember where it was. I think it was some fanzine or bulletin, and I surmised that from 1945 to, I think it was 1985, I figured that there was probably 20,000 matches in Ontario. Cards.
All right, yeah.
Cards. Like that's unbelievable. I think AC and I did a report on the kayfabe memories board one year. We did the summer of 1957, and Tunney basically ran 2 cards a night for the whole summer, and that was not including every Toronto show. That was like cottage country. That was everywhere. It was like crazy, like 90 cards over 2 months. Unbelievable. That was one summer only.
Yeah, that's wild, man. For me, my favorite memory of all is NXT Toronto 2016. That was a huge night. The Revival, aka FTR for the modern fans, faced DIY that night in the best 2 out of 3 falls tag team match.
That was the one.
Yeah, and it was match of the year, Wes. At 28 years old, they had me going, oh, like out of my seat, like I thought it was over. And I'm just like, I don't get that. It's hard for us older guys to get that now.
Hey, speak for yourself.
Hey, I go to a lot of indie shows. I could talk about indie shows. I mean, I just met Bret Hart on the indie scene. I've met Sabu on the Ontario indie scene. Tajiri, Mikey Whipwreck, Shane Douglas. Like, I could talk about Ontario indies right now for a while, but that's a whole other day. But yeah, but my favorite match definitely was that one that I witnessed. Even though I was at SummerSlam, I think 2018, 2 years later, when they came back and they did the whole SummerSlam weekend. Wes is like, "What's a SummerSlam? What's a SummerSlam?"
No, he isn't. No, he isn't. I've got it written down here somewhere.
What do you mean McMahon's still around? Yeah, he's a little in trouble now. But my favorite thing to research about Ontario would be like the older stuff. Like I love the 60s in Toronto. I'm a big 60s fan in Toronto because that's like Whipper Watson and Bruno Sammartino tagged, right? Then you got Sammartino versus Buddy Rogers in the Maple Leaf Gardens. You know, Lou Thez versus Buddy Rogers, and you get the Sweet Daddy Seekies and Johnny Valentine's and the Browers. So that's definitely probably my favorite era to look into, for sure. Although I do like Wrestling Riots, and I gotta look more into Wrestling Riots and Wrestling Bears. That's how me and Wes bonded over the Wildman and the Bears. So yeah. Quebec. I mean, right off the top of my head, I'm going to say Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, just because I watched them today, and I think they're great. He's coming back for $200 an autograph, apparently, but
Wow.
Yeah. My favorite memory of Quebec was just my past trip that I did, the 3 independent shows we went to. Huge death match, 32-man death match tournament. It was pretty wild. So, yeah. And then research-wise out of Quebec, I don't know. It's just so Andre for sure, probably.
I remember going to my father is from Montreal, and we had lots of relatives and friends in Quebec, especially in the Eastern Townships, is where I think you went to that show a few weeks ago. And I remember visiting friends in the early 70s, and it's a really fuzzy memory. And I'm sure I saw a Grand Prix poster on a telephone pole with Andre the Giant on it. And it's like, you know what? I would give anything to get in the time machine and go back, not to get the poster, but just to look at it again.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that, you know, it comes in, and as you get older, it comes in and it goes out, it comes in. It's like, oh man, that would have been so cool. But I love the whole aspect, the history of Quebec, and Carpentier was one of my favorites. But just that memory it makes me alive thinking about it. It was in a town called Asbestos, Quebec, and it was a really weird place because it was an open pit mine where they mined asbestos.
Yeah.
It's like a killer. It's a cancer-causing killer, and they were like mining it in open fields.
Name of that town too. Last year they changed the name of that town.
Did they really? To what?
Uh
Not asbestos.
no, it's not asbestos. It's like lack something.
Okay.
I've heard an episode of Commons about it, and that's they changed the name of it, to not asbestos.
Wow.
Andy, Quebec, anything you want?
I would have to say the Vachon family is probably the one that I'm drawn to the most there, just in terms of research. Um, there's been very few episodes that I've done that haven't touched the Vachon family in some way, shape, or form, which is fascinating considering the amount of eras that I've gone through in Canadian wrestling history. So, I would say the Vachon family, and boy, oh boy, there's so much there from the personal side, and then you get into the wrestling side, right? And I'll spoil it. Vivian is one that I'll be doing a show on in a few months from now, who was one of the preeminent women's wrestlers of her time. Obviously, her life was tragically cut short.
Yep.
But she's someone who is not really discussed nowadays. She was kind of in a negative context on that Dark Side of the Ring episode on Luna Vachon. I don't know if you guys saw that or not, but
Yeah, I mean, the show.
that.
Yeah, I
So,
saw it.
yeah, okay, yeah. So they had an offhand comment about her, which I was like, I'm not sure about that. And that's honestly, that comment is what sparked me on to do my research for that upcoming episode. But anyways, so for me, the Vachon family is like, obviously the Rougeaus are huge, right? Carpentier, the Flying Frenchman, massive star. You could go on and on about Grand Prix and international and everything, but for me, the most fascinating aspect is the Vachons.
Did you see the movie The Wrestling Queen? Have you seen that on YouTube?
I haven't seen it. No, I want to see it. I'm out of time every day.
It focuses pretty much on Vivian, and a fantastic bunch of matches against Maria Laverne.
Yeah.
I think it's in from Iowa or taped somewhere mid-south or something. And some really good. It's just worth watching. Worth watching for sure.
Nova Scotia.
Nova Scotia. I think the East Coast.
Let's just pull it out, Wes.
Yeah.
Shout out to our boy Ronnie Hutchins.
There you go, Ronnie Hutchinson. Yeah. The Cormiers were so big we could cover the whole New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and PEI with the Cormiers, but they weren't the only star. But they lasted so long. Well, it was four of them.
Yeah.
Four.
Yeah, four.
So that's big time. Long careers, long promotion, and they were long famous all over the States.
Yeah.
Rocky Johnson, thank you for the rock.
Yeah. And Ricky, of course.
Yeah, and Ricky, who's also a part of our groups.
Did you meet Ricky?
No, Ricky was there on Saturday. I should have messaged him and told him I was going to be there to show him the clippings. However, I did talk to Eric Young, and Eric Young told me that he did meet Dave.
Okay.
And the Bearman, and I pulled out the phone and showed him clippings and stuff and some Maple Leaf stuff. So that was fun. But yeah, Ricky was there, but I think he was backstage talking to like the guys.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyways.
And Newfoundland, Hartford Love. Or Eric Pomeroy, the guy from was a pretend Vachon brother for a while. Other than that, Sailor White. Sailor White was a Newfoundlander, that's for sure. Jesse.
I like potatoes. and Alexander Keiths.
Yep.
There you go.
Here you go. That's
Andy?
what-
Well, I'll have to kind of lump the Maritimes into one, and that's not a slight on the Maritimes, obviously, but so Leo Burke is like, in my opinion, he's like the Canadian Iron Man. Like there's nobody's had more matches in Canada than he has in wrestling history. So I think, if you're talking about impressive feats, it starts and ends with that, in my opinion.
Mhm.
And the spoiler is somebody who I'm fascinated by.
Oh man, we forgot about Don Jardine for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So, in terms of, in terms of the Maritimes, again, I don't mean to say that nothing came out of there. That's not true. But
No.
to me, those are the two that are like the two big stories from the Maritimes that really fascinate me.
The even Emile Dupre and his son, right, Rene. They were. We put those two guys' careers together, and that's pretty big.
Yes. Yeah, like Emil with the running the promotion there. Yeah, Renee, I think. Oh my goodness, he got a bad rap in the WWE, I think. Right, Renee, because didn't he get stuck with that stupid La Resistance? Was that him or was that somebody else I'm thinking of now?
Was that Chris Masters?
No.
Masters? No, no. You know the French guy I'm talking about that did the dance. I think that was.
Oh, I'm not sure. Now I'm totally at a loss, but yeah.
I do remember La Resistance though.
Yeah,
I just can't
you know,
remember who was in it.
they're a bunch of assholes, like whatever. Just classic. It's the classic French interpretation of wrestlers.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, when you start thinking about it, there was quite a few guys. Jardine, and we talk about Jardine a lot because of his attachment to the Undertaker, and he was massive star everywhere too.
He was
Undertaker was a massive star.
Portland, right? Like Jardine was just so huge.
Yeah.
Mhm. Well, boys, we covered the country. Andy, thank you for coming out, man. Appreciate it. There's a lot I learned from you tonight too.
Yes, thank you. That was awesome, Andy. It's I love your scope and your depth on history. That's cool. I'm really looking forward to talking to you again and getting into some really good meat and potatoes.
And the research you do is just incredible. And you had AC on your show, and that pisses me off because I've been to his house.
Twice. I've had AC on twice.
That's it. AC, next time I see you, buddy. You called me a video star last time I was over. He's like, you and Wes are too big for me, man. You're video stars now. Like, no, AC is a great guy. He does fantastic work for the Maple Leaf Wrestling. But yeah, man, I can't believe like the research, everything you do is just great, and we're so happy to have you out. If you want to plug all your stuff and all that, where everybody can find you and your episodes and.
Sure. So, easiest way to find the Grappling with Canada program is on any major podcasting platform that you use, whether it's Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcast, Stitcher, whatever. I always say wherever you buy, sell, trade, barter, or steal, and I especially ask that you steal my podcast, you can find Grappling with Canada. There's a back catalog we've done names like many of the ones that you've heard tonight. Billy T. Rivers, Gene Kiniski, Stu Hart, the Monster Ripper, Rhonda Singh, Great Gama Singh, George Gordienko was this year. Roddy Piper was a 2-part episode. We've run the gambit, and this will be out on July 1st, correct?
No, after.
Okay.
Yes. Everybody's already celebrated Canada Day.
Okay, so if you're not too hungover from celebrating Canada Day, you can hop on the feed and right now listen to our episode on Whipper Billy Watson featuring the two fine gentlemen that I was very gracious to be joined on that program and to join you guys on the program tonight. So Grappling with Canada, like I said, on every major podcasting platform. You can find me on Twitter at @6_podcast. I can't change that because it's from the old program, and it ain't gonna change. I'm not doing that.
Okay.
And also, I would invite anybody to come on into the Canadian Professional Wrestling History Facebook group. There's a ton of cool stuff that gets shared there constantly. It's a lot of good conversations and a lot of just fascinating tidbits that are put out there constantly. So just if you're a fan of the Wildman podcast or Facebook group and what you guys do with the Ontario clippings and the national wrestling clippings as well, come on in to the Canadian Professional Wrestling History Facebook group as well. Open invite.
Awesome.
Yeah. Fantastic Facebook group. I'm a member.
I'm
Just
also
Yeah.
I am too, I think. I hope.
But
Wes
hey,
is like,
guys,
oh damn, Wes has got to check the phone.
but this was a treat. You know what? I get so bogged down with doing my like deep dives on the one person a month thing that I kind of lose track of the rest of Canada. So this was an absolute treat for me. I can't thank you guys enough for having me on tonight.
Oh, it's our pleasure, and it was great to see you. And I'm hoping to see you and Fuzzy and Terrence Mashaluk again at a show, because I see Terrence was at filming, taking pictures at a show on the weekend.
Oh, cool. Yeah. It's tough because I got the two little ones. As you can see, the one joined me unexpectedly tonight. I couldn't chase her upstairs to bed. My wife had to get tagged in and take care of that one. But yeah, I 100%. If I ever have a chance, hopefully soon, to go to a show, Wes, I'll be there.
Cool. Awesome.
And if you guys want to come to Ontario show, that's where the best wrestling is in this province, because I am a bias mop when it comes to that stuff. Everybody, again, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. 3 Facebook groups, guys. We go over this every time. The National Wrestling Clipping Alliance, the Wildman Tribute page, the Ontario Wrestling Clippings of the Past page. We're on Twitter at official NWCA 1. And Wes, anything else you want to add?
I'm on Twitter, but I have no idea where I am.
Did you open your Instagram page yet?
No, no, I'm not going to open up an Instagram page.
Why not? You can connect your Facebook to it.
It's too complicated. I'm old.
Old people drive me crazy.
Grand River Tea is our good sponsor. That's a 10% at checkout. Don't forget, please sponsor with us from the start.
That's right, Grand River Tea.
And yeah, whatever. No idea. I do enough. I can't do anything else. I drive around like an idiot all day. I'm throwing shit out.
You got drunk with Jim on our show.
Well, I didn't get drunk, but I was happy.
Anyways, if you can, hit the subscribe button. We're hoping to be back in a couple weeks. A couple of things have happened. My sister's coming down, and she's from Sudbury, so that's 5 hours away from me, and I'm spending as much time with my niece as I can, because I don't know if I'll see them again this year.
And I'm going to be doing some brief history ofs, so that should be pretty cool. I'm going to do like maybe a 10-minute episode on brief histories of across Canada, or maybe even somewhere else. So that should be fun. I'm looking forward to doing those.
Yes, those are new videos that we're going to come out with, of arenas and little spots and cities.
Little spot shows, as they call them.
Spot shows. There you go.
And Johnny G for helping us out, doing all the pinpointing and the editing. He couldn't make it tonight, but that's cool. We are so appreciative of his talents.
Yes.
I'll let you roll it, Jesse.
His editing talents, Johnny G, my boy, as they call him, Ricochet. They call him Ricochet. The whole group of us, we all have nicknames and at the shows, and his is Ricochet.
Although
you're like, I don't know who Ricochet is.
He's Abdullah the Butcher's illegitimate grandson.
Oh, wow. I'm bringing that up. I'm going to call that. That's Johnny's new name. Buddy, you're the Abdullah the Butcher illegitimate son. You're the Gino Hernandez of Ontario.
Someone's got to be an illegitimate son.
Yeah,
okay,
and it won't be me.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Andy.
Andy, again, thank you for coming out.
Hugs and kisses, man.
And you guys enjoy that winter peg weather over there. Hopefully it gets above 17 because it was 40 degrees the other day here. So
It's been nice. I'm looking a little tanned, you know.
yeah, you got the farmer's tan because you're like this out the window, listening to Cornette brainwash you against modern wrestling. More on that next week.
Yes.
I'm Jess.
I'm Wes.
And we're the National Wrestling Clipping Alliance. Our boy Andy, the Taxman, give you money for your gold. That's definitely good. Everybody, thanks again for watching. Till next time.
Sayonara.
And we're going to start a Patreon so Wes can get the Bam Bam Bigelow tattoo. Peace. I'm Jeff.
And I'm Wes.
I'm Jeff.
And I'm Wes.
We are the National Wrestling Clipping Alliance. It's the NWCA Podcast. The NWCA Podcast.
I love doing this, and I love you. In a cool wrestling history kind of way.
Hey, easy, man.